All right, so I'm going to back up just a little bit. All right, so once I had my thesis statement, I developed a series of questions that have to be answered in order to fulfill all parts of my thesis statement. So I came up with 6 questions. So the first thing I mentioned in my thesis statement is that she has adhered to the expectations of her gender throughout her life. So this is my claim. So how has she adhered to the expectations of her gender? The next claim I make in my thesis is that this has made her feel dissatisfied with herself. So how do I know, based on the story, that she is dissatisfied with herself? And then I said it has made her unable to achieve self-fulfillment. Well, why? How has she been able to achieve self-fulfillment? How do I know that based on the story? So then I make another claim that she is finally able to cast off the expectations of her gender. So how do I know she's casting off the expectations of her gender? And then she begins taking her first step towards self-actualization. So what are those first steps? And how do I know this is her moving towards self-actualization? So then I start looking in the story to cite evidence to go along with this. So I have the fact that she calls him her ex-husband, which lets us know she was a wife. We know she was devoted to him. They were married for 27 years, so that's, pretty much your whole life. And then the fact that she took care of her father, her children, and those types of things. The fact that she was focused on fulfilling the wants and needs of her children, her husband, while her ex-husband was focused on fulfilling his own personal needs. The fact that, what he wants is a boat. So she's focused inside the home versus he's focused outside the home. So adhering to those gender stereotypes. So then the second question, how do I know that she's dissatisfied with this? So then that's when she says, I want to be a different person. So she isn't satisfied with the fact that she has adhered to these gender stereotypes. But I will say it doesn't, I would add in when I was writing about this, I don't get the sense that she was dissatisfied about having children. She didn't seem to regret having children. It seems that her dissatisfaction is her lack of focus on herself. And that's where we get into the her being unable to achieve self-fulfillment, the fact that she was sort of stuck at that level of relationships, that she wasn't really focusing on herself. She was only focusing on her husband and her children. So then how do we know she's moving towards casting away those gender expectations? So let's see. So that's how is she casting it off? So she says she wanted to be married forever to one person, but you couldn't exhaust either man's qualities or get under the rock of his reasons in one short life. So she kind of accepts the fact that maybe what she wanted as far as that is concerned wasn't realistic, and that she's just not so concerned about it anymore. And then the fact that the trees that had been dreamily planted a couple of years before the kids were born had come into the prime of their lives. So the trees are kind of a metaphor for her children or symbol for her children. So we know her children are grown. She doesn't really have to worry so much about being a mother. And so now when she looked at those trees, she realized that it was time to focus on herself, because it made her think about the fact that her children were grown. So what are her first steps? So one thing that's significant is that she's sitting on the steps of the new library. So this is a new library. This is a new chance for her to be the person that she wanted to be. So she decided to bring those books back to the library. This was her chance to go back and give herself another chance to be the person that she wanted to be. So then how is this moving towards self-actualization? So when we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs after relationships, is that esteem, that feeling of prestige and accomplishment. So taking the books back gives her a sense of accomplishment. So now she's moving into that next step. And then once she's able to do more things that raise her self-esteem and give her that sense of accomplishment, she'll be able to maybe move into that final step of full self-actualization. So you see here how I've laid out an entire paper. Now, this is not including the sources from Galileo, obviously. So that would be my next step, is to look at what other sources can I find to support my critical reading of this story. So if you decide to use something about a psychoanalytic approach and you want to use a resource from the web, like using Maslow's hierarchy of needs or something like that, that's perfectly fine. We'll talk more in the future about finding sources. I just want you to be looking at your short story, your topic, and generating your ideas right now.